Happy Friday, everybody. Today is July 10th, 2026, and this is your Friday planning video. Now, some of the best financial decisions you'll ever make won't just maximize your financial returns, they'll maximize your choices. That's a sentence I found myself repeating more often over the last few years, and it's a concept that doesn't nearly get enough attention in the financial world. When people think about financial planning, they usually think about numbers. They think about investment returns, retirement projections, interest rates, tax strategies, and account balances. All of those things matter, of course. They're important parts of the process. But when I sit down with clients and look back on the best financial decisions they've made, the decisions that have had the biggest impact on their lives were often not the ones that generated the highest financial return. They were the ones that created the most flexibility. A few weeks ago, I was meeting with a client who's considering a career change. Financially, he was in a good position. He had worked hard, saved consistently, and built a solid foundation. The question wasn't whether he could afford to make a change. The question was whether he wanted to. As we talked through the decisions, something interesting became clear. We weren't really discussing money anymore. We were discussing options. One path offered slightly higher compensation. The other offered greater flexibility, more control over his schedule, and work that he found more meaningful. And at one point during the conversation, he said something that really stuck with me. He said, "The biggest benefit of being in a strong financial position is that I don't have to make this decision based solely on the money." And I thought that was a remarkably insightful observation because that's exactly what planning is supposed to do. It's supposed to give you options. It's supposed to create the freedom to make decisions based on what's important to you rather than being forced into decisions because of financial pressure. That conversation reminded me of something I've noticed over the years. When people are younger, financial success is often measured by accumulation. How much have I saved? How much have I earned? How much have I invested? And those are perfectly reasonable questions. But eventually the focus begins to shift. The conversation becomes less about accumulation and more about flexibility. Can I spend more time with my family? Can I retire when I want to? Can I help my children if they need me? Can I take advantage of an opportunity when it appears? Can I walk away from something that no longer aligns with my values? Those questions are really questions about optionality. And optionality is one of the most valuable things money can buy. A number of years ago, I worked with a business owner who was preparing to sell his company. Like many entrepreneurs, he had spent decades building something from the ground up. The business represented an enormous amount of effort, sacrifice, and commitment. As we got closer to the sale, people naturally started asking him what he was going to do next. Would he retire? Would he start another company? Would he consult? Would he travel more? His answer surprised many people. He said, "I don't know yet." Some people interpreted that as uncertainty. I interpreted it differently. I thought it was freedom. For the first time in decades, he didn't have to know. He had options. And sometimes having options is more valuable than having answers. I've seen that same principle play out over and over again. The clients who seem most comfortable navigating life's changes are rarely the ones who can predict the future most accurately. They're the ones who have built enough flexibility into their lives that they can adapt when the future inevitably changes. And let's be honest, the future always changes. Think about where you were 5 years ago. Would you have accurately predicted everything that's happened since then? Probably not. Most of us wouldn't. Yet somehow life moves forward. Plans adapt, priorities evolve, unexpected opportunities appear, unexpected challenges appear too. That's why I think optionality is so important. It recognizes that we don't know exactly what the future will bring. Instead of trying to predict every outcome, we build a financial life that can accommodate a variety of outcomes. And that's a very different mindset. It's the difference between trying to control the future and preparing yourself to navigate it. The more I think about it, the more I believe that many financial mistakes come from sacrificing too much flexibility. People become overextended. They take on obligations that limit future choices. They make decisions that look attractive in the short term, but reduce their ability to adapt later. And then when life changes, as it always does, they discover they have fewer options than they thought. The opposite is true as well. Every time you increase savings, reduce debt, maintain liquidity, or strengthen your financial foundation, you're creating future choices. You may not know exactly how you'll use those choices someday ahead. That's okay. The point isn't to know. The point is to have them available. One of the reasons I want to talk about this topic today is because it flows naturally from what we discussed last week. Last week, we talked about financial independence and how it isn't really just a number. This week, I'd like to take that one step further. If financial independence is the outcome, optionality is often how you get there. The ability to choose, the ability to adapt, the ability to pursue opportunities when they arise, the ability to respond thoughtfully instead of reactively. Those things create freedom, and they don't happen overnight. They're built gradually through years of thoughtful decisions. As you head into the weekend, I would encourage you to think about a decision you're facing right now. It doesn't necessarily have to be a financial decision. It could be a career decision, a family decision, or a lifestyle decision. Instead of asking yourself which option produces the best immediate benefit, consider asking a different question. Which option creates the most flexibility going forward? Which option keeps the most doors open? Which option gives me the greatest ability to adapt if circumstances change? You may find the answer looks different than you expected, because sometimes the best decision isn't the one that maximizes today's outcome. Sometimes it's the one that maximizes tomorrow's possibilities. And that's the real power of optionality. If you'd like to talk about whether your financial plan is helping create more options and flexibility for the future, we'd be happy to have that conversation. For now, have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next week.